Take down your gate or pay $50 a day. That's what the HOA notice screamed at me, taped right across my fence like I was some criminal blocking the world's highway. 72 hours to obey, or they'd start stacking fines higher than my morning coffee bills. What they didn't know was that just a few weeks later, not only would I keep my gate, but I'd own the land outright and their threats would crumble into dust. I've lived in this neighborhood for 8 years. Quiet streets, decent people, nothing out of the ordinary. Until Cynthia Drake became president of the HOA. If you've ever met someone who thrives on control, who treats every minor inconvenience like it's a federal crime, that's Cynthia. The kind of woman who would measure your grass with a ruler just to prove a point. And this time her eyes were on my gate, standing across a strip of land I'd walked through for nearly a decade without anyone blinking. Suddenly, it was a public path I was blocking. I stared at that violation notice, crumpled it in my hand, then smoothed it back out. The language wasn't neighborly, it was sharp, like a blade. I knew I had to fight it, but part of me wondered if maybe I was the one in the wrong. I mean, could I really be blocking a legitimate road all these years? The doubt crept in like cold air under a door. Holly Turner, my next-door neighbor, saw me standing there with that paper. She rushed over in her bathrobe, panic in her eyes. "Derek, do they even have the right?" I waved the notice like it was a joke, but inside, I wasn't laughing. That night, I made a checklist, county acceptance log, subdivision plat, maintenance maps. I wasn't just going to sit around waiting for fines to pile up. The next day, I drove down to the courthouse. Thick binders, dusty pages, official seals. And there it was, a blank space where signatures should have been. No ordinance, no acceptance, nothing. This so-called public road had never been adopted by the county. It was like a grade book where no one ever showed up to class. I snapped pictures, grinning like a man who just found the smoking gun. But I knew Cynthia wouldn't back down just because the law wasn't on her side. She wasn't that type. So I called Clara Benson, a licensed surveyor I'd worked with before. "Bring your gear, Clara," I said. "We're going to settle this with stakes in the ground." The following morning, Clara set up her transit. Holly snapped photos for evidence, and everything felt official until Cynthia came storming across the grass with a binder full of papers. "CCR Section 12.4 covers all pathways in our development," she announced, voice dripping with authority. Clara calmly flipped through the plat, pointed at the fine print, and read aloud 10-foot utility and drainage easement. Not a roadway, not public access. Cynthia's face cracked around the edges, but she pressed on. The board voted unanimously to enforce this violation. I couldn't resist. "Your board could vote unanimously that shadows are solid walls, Cynthia. Doesn't make it true." Neighbors watching chuckled. Cynthia didn't. I thought maybe that would shut her down, but instead the HOA escalated. The next day, I found an envelope in my mailbox, urgent lien notice. They were threatening to attach my property title to stain my deed over a rule they had no authority to enforce. My stomach dropped. For the first time, I wondered if I was in over my head. Maybe I should just take the gate down. Avoid the fight. Losing my home over a stubborn fence. Was I crazy? That night, doubt gnawed at me. I sat at my kitchen table staring at that lien threat, whispering to myself, "What if they win?" But then, almost on cue, Holly knocked on my door at dawn, furious. "Derek, you need to see this." The survey stakes Clara had placed were ripped out, shifted 3 feet off, tampered with. My jaw clenched. This wasn't enforcement. This was sabotage. Clara came back shaking her head. "Tampering with survey markers is a crime," she said. And that's when my doubt hardened into anger. If they wanted a fight, they had one. Over the next week, the truth unraveled like a loose thread. Clara discovered Cynthia had personally filed a request with the county to convert that strip into an HOA amenity trail. Why? Because Cynthia owned rental properties that backed up to it. A trail would boost their value. This wasn't about community safety or bylaws, it was about lining her own pockets. Suddenly, everything made sense. The threats, the persistence, the fake authority. It was all personal gain disguised as neighborhood concern. And then came the twist of all twists. Clara found an old microfilm copy of a construction permit from 2001. It allowed temporary access for construction vehicles. Expired in the same year. This so-called public path was nothing but a paper street, a road that existed on maps but never in reality. Even better, the county had listed the strip as surplus land for sale, minimum bid $500. My heart raced. If I bought it, the fight would be over before it began. I wasn't about to leave it to chance. I prepared a sealed bid of $2,000, 4 times the minimum, and slid it across the county desk like I was handing over dynamite. For 3 days, I barely slept waiting. Then the call came. "Congratulations, Mr. Lawson. You're the highest bidder." I sat my coffee cup down slowly, trying not to grin too wide. Just like that, the land was mine. Cynthia's trump card had turned into confetti. But I wasn't done. I knew Cynthia would try one last desperate stunt. Sure enough, the county inspector showed up clipboard in hand to review emergency access. Cynthia arrived too, clutching a hand-drawn map like a child's art project. "This path is critical for safety," she barked. The inspector raised an eyebrow. "Do you have the acceptance ordinance number?" Silence. She fumbled, shuffled papers, but had nothing. He pulled out his county database. Private property with utility easements only he confirmed. Then the fire marshal came pacing the route measuring clearances. A massive county truck rumbled through my alternate path with ease. "Meets all safety codes," he declared. Cynthia's face drained of color. By now, neighbors had gathered. Phones up recording. And then came the bombshell. The inspector revealed Cynthia's personal request for the amenity trail. The crowd murmured, eyes narrowing. Holly shouted, "So, this was never about safety. It was about your rentals, wasn't it?" Cynthia's silence was louder than any defense. That night, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. 4 members stared her down, documents in hand. No confidence vote, 4-0. She was forced to resign on the spot, turning over keys and codes with trembling hands. As for me, I walked home, poured myself another coffee, and stared at the brand-new sign bolted to my gate. Private property. Deed number 2024-08 was 1749. Not just a gate anymore, but a monument. A reminder that persistence, paperwork, and a refusal to bow to bullies can topple even the loudest tyrants. And if there's one thing this whole mess taught me, it's this: authority without real ground to stand on is nothing but noise.